You ever wonder how governments move trillions of dollars? Most of us imagine dramatic emergency speeches, late-night votes, or flashing breaking news alerts. But what if I told you the largest transfers of wealth in modern history rarely make the news at all? They happen quietly, gradually, and almost invisibly. There are no sudden announcements, no market crashes, just a complex system doing exactly what it was designed to do. This is the real story of how trillions are moved, right under our noses, without anyone really noticing. On the surface, government finances seem pretty straightforward. Budgets get passed, taxes are collected, and debt is issued. It all looks neat on paper. But underneath this official layer, there's a much more subtle mechanism at work. This is what allows governments to manage immense financial pressures without causing public panic or political backlash. Instead of making painful spending cuts or announcing aggressive tax hikes, they use time, inflation, and financial engineering to shift the burden quietly. Nothing is ever really lost or disappears. It just changes hands. Let's start with the most misunderstood tool, inflation. We're often told inflation is just rising prices, like your coffee getting more expensive. But in reality, it's a powerful redistribution machine. When the prices of goods and services rise faster than your wages or the interest you earn on your savings, your purchasing power effectively moves. It flows from savers to borrowers, from those on fixed incomes to those with variable incomes, and most importantly, from the public to the issuer of the currency, the government. As the biggest borrower in the entire system, governments benefit hugely when inflation erodes the real value of their debt over time. The number on their balance sheet might say they owe $1 trillion, but what that $1 trillion can actually buy is shrinking every single day. No vote is needed for this to happen. No press conference is held. The adjustment is automatic and continuous. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful and invisible tools in their arsenal: negative real interest rates. This doesn't even look like a policy, which is what makes it so brilliant. Here's how it works. When the official interest rates set by central banks are kept below the rate of inflation, something strange happens. If you're a lender, say you bought a government bond, you're still technically getting paid interest. But because inflation is higher than your return, you are losing purchasing power. Your money is worth less when you get it back. For governments, this is the ideal scenario. Their debt gets rolled over instead of being paid off, their interest costs stay manageably low, and the real financial burden is slowly and quietly shifted onto the bondholders. The system keeps functioning smoothly because there's no dramatic default or collapse. The losses are spread so thinly, across so many people, and over such a long period, that they become almost invisible. It's a slow-motion transfer of wealth, happening in plain sight. This brings us to another key concept: debt rollovers. Governments don't pay off their debt like you or I would pay off a credit card or a mortgage. When a government bond matures, it's very rarely paid back with cash on hand. Instead, a new bond is issued to raise the money needed to pay off the old one. This process is called a debt rollover, and it allows national debt to become a permanent feature of the economy, not a temporary problem to be solved. As long as there are buyers for the new bonds, this can go on indefinitely. Over decades, two things happen to make this old debt seem less significant. First, inflation reduces its real value, just as we discussed. Second, economic growth means the overall economy is larger, so the debt becomes a smaller percentage of the total pie. The old debt just fades into the background, and the transfer of its real value is completed long before anyone even thinks to ask where the money went. So, who makes all of this possible? The central banks. They are the essential shock absorbers that keep the whole system looking stable. They do this by purchasing massive amounts of government bonds, managing the amount of money flowing through the financial system, and stepping in to calm markets during times of stress. Their actions prevent sudden, sharp adjustments that would cause a visible crisis. But this doesn't eliminate the risk, it just redistributes it. The risk moves from the government's budget onto the central bank's balance sheet. It moves from the stock and bond markets into the currency itself, in the form of long-term dilution of its value. The result is what we see every day: calm markets and a sense of stability, while these enormous financial shifts happen silently beneath the surface. So if trillions are moving, the big question is, who actually pays? When this transfer happens silently, someone has to be on the other end, absorbing the cost. Typically, it's savers holding cash in the bank, whose money is losing value every day. It's pension funds that are required to hold safe government bonds that are secretly losing purchasing power. It's workers whose wages don't keep up with the true cost of living. And it's long-term bondholders who think they've made a safe investment. The genius of the design is that no single group feels the full impact all at once. The burden is spread across the entire population and stretched out over many years, which makes any organized resistance or even awareness almost impossible. This explains why you never see headlines about it. Crises make news; slow, methodical processes do not. As long as the financial markets are functioning, payments are being made, and the system appears stable, there's no single event to report on. There's no breaking news moment. This is why the largest wealth transfers in history don't look dramatic, they look boring. They're hidden in technical reports, inflation data, and obscure central bank statements. It's only years or even decades later that people look back and realize their money doesn't go as far as it used to, and that their financial reality has been quietly reshaped. And why do governments prefer this silent method? Because the alternatives are politically explosive. If a government tried to make these adjustments directly, the backlash would be immediate. Spending cuts lead to protests and social unrest. Tax hikes face fierce political opposition, and outright defaulting on debt would destroy a country's credibility for generations. But these silent, structural mechanisms face none of those problems. They are politically painless because no one has to vote on them. They are technically legal, built into the very fabric of our financial laws, and their impact is so socially diffused that it's hard to pin the blame on any one decision or politician. Once these systems are in place, they run on autopilot. The bigger picture here is that this isn't some secret conspiracy. It's a structure. Modern financial systems were built specifically to manage economies that carry enormous amounts of debt without them collapsing. The outcome is a world where financial adjustments happen continuously, not in big, disruptive bursts. The money doesn't just vanish into thin air, it moves. It moves quietly, predictably, and almost always without a single headline. So, the next time you hear about trillions of dollars in government spending or debt, remember this: the most powerful and transformative economic changes don't arrive with a bang. They don't come with breaking news banners or urgent alerts. They arrive slowly, almost silently, hidden in the numbers on a spreadsheet. By the time most people notice that something has fundamentally changed, the transfer has already happened. And that, in the end, is exactly how the system is designed to work. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing for more deep dives into how our world really operates.